afternoon, good evening, wherever you're consuming this broadcast. You're listening to Bus Talk. My name is Ian, and I am the only host of Bus Talk. There are no stars, there are no guests, there are no great life changing tips or get promoted quick ideas. It's just a slow burn, straight talk. So, if this is something right up your alley, you have tuned into the right show. Idea is to build a cohort or a tribe of people who have long attention spans in the age of shortening attention spans. The other day I noticed somebody was on Instagram and it had a 30-second video, and right at the top of the video it said, wait till the end. I'm like, seriously, 30, 30 seconds? Where is your attention span going, right? It is disturbing to say the least. So, Bus Talk is an effort to have a relaxed, slow burn, general, simple conversation about every day at work, things that happen every day at work. And I travel a lot and I meet a lot of people. A lot of the conversations here are probably relevant and happening in your lives too. While the focus largely is around folks in sales and business development, but finance, procurement, marketing, all the other ancillary departments that are interacting, engaging, dependent, or impacted by, say, a salesperson will find the content relevant as well. The age group, work X age group, if you will, largely is 5 to 15 or 18 years of work X. Not to say it isn't for early career professionals. You will, get a sneak peek into the future. And then, of course, there are the leaders who have already gone through this, going through this, managing this, leading this, these set of mid-career professionals. And so you will have some content relatable as well. As always, the disclaimer in place: the content that you hear is strictly personal. My past, present, or future employers have nothing to do with it. Do not endorse it. It doesn't belong to them. It's only and only my personal opinion in the limited capacity of understanding of the world that I have. So take it in the right spirit. As always, I have, I think, a fascinating episode. I hope you will find it fascinating as well. It's to do with this is to do with all you sales guys out there, right at the top of the who are chasing deals. This is also applicable for those, say, inside sales people who want to be in a quota carrying role. This is also applicable to folks in procurement who are now negotiating on a deal. This is for finance professionals approving a deal. This is for stakeholders in other countries who get to see these proposals. In case you haven't guessed it already, I am going to talk about the payment culture in common workplace in 2026. Mostly relevant to this part of the world, i.e., India, but I'm sure similar situations occur and happen in other parts of the world as well. So, without further ado, let's dive right in to this episode of Bus Talk. If you're running to chase a deal, end of a quarter, ever noticed how payment in 30 days can literally mean anything between 30 days and the next 6 months, or maybe even a fiscal or even a cancelled order? Welcome to the land where follow up emails are an art form and the phrase under process, air quotes on that, is a lifestyle. In this episode, I will dive deep into one of the most relatable, dare I say, emotional topics for every sales professional out there: the payment culture. If you have ever celebrated a deal and then spent the next 3 months whining and chasing the payment like a Netflix thriller, this episode is for you. So, what am I going to talk about? We will dive a little bit on understanding the payment culture, the hidden underlying sentiments, why it happens, the quirks and realities, some relatable stories maybe, and see if you and I can lessen the pain a little bit the next time you get into a similar situation. So grab your coffee, open your CRM. No, maybe not. Don't open your CRM. Shut everything down, and let's dive into this episode of the payment timelines, if you will, or payment culture. And much like the traffic in your city, it is stuck in a logjam. So let's understand why people are reluctant to pay money. And this includes you too. Now, it's easy to point a finger at the head of procurement or head of finance, or maybe whoever the stakeholder or decision maker is. It's very easy to point a finger and say how hard they are. But when it comes to you, you exactly do the same to somebody else. Like you crib and cry about why a procurement head is asking for more discount, but then comes a call from your friendly neighborhood telecaller calling you about buying a credit card. And then you say, no, I don't want to, reminding you of your payment due of the last purchase. And you say, yeah, I'll do it, don't worry. Which clearly you have missed, and there's no reason for you to miss. Or the fact that when you go to shop something and you ask for a better bargain or a better deal, how much discount can you give? And so it's a cyclical thing. It's a vicious cycle. That's the right phrase. What goes around comes around. So yeah, while on one hand we complain about what we deal with, we're also meting out the same treatment to other people. So my first stop, or the first pit stop in this roller coaster journey, excuse me, is to be a little generous on your payment culture. That's in your control. For example, I know people argue with a coconut vendor, the ones who sit by the pavement, by the curbside and sell coconuts. And they argue for 10 bucks or 20 bucks. And like, why is it so expensive? Like, that's not where you negotiate. Can you negotiate the same thing when you go inside the Starbucks coffee? You can't. They say it's 700 bucks for a coffee and you pay for it. And I know you will say, well, having a Starbucks coffee is not the same as paying 40 bucks to a coconut vendor. But in your mind, the perceived value should is say 10 rupees or 20 rupees, if you will, for that coconut. He's trying to make a living and he's struggling. And if even if he charges you 20 bucks more, that's not something that you need to negotiate hard, right? Just it is situational, is all I'm saying. It doesn't apply everywhere. Likewise, if you had to negotiate, it's like punching above and not punching down. Negotiate with people who are in a stronger position than you. Well, that's something to think about. But negotiating with people who can't respond back, who can't say anything to you, it's probably not the right thing. So before you point a finger at someone, can you look at yourself and say, can you improve your payment culture? Whether you're a landlord seeking rent, and I'm not asking you to be reckless about it, right? I mean, the idea is not to be careless about it, right? Of course, you have to go ask the rent on time, or if you have to have an accountability. That's fine. Or if you find yourself in a situation where you are driving a deal and there is value add that you're doing, you have the right to ask a certain price. But quality service will never come cheap. So I've often said this: cheap and best is a fool's paradise. The reason something is cheap is because the better parts of it are not available, and therefore the cost is saved, and that's why it's available at X minus Y cost. And the mindset largely that we have today is like, why do you need to spend when we can make do with the bare minimum? Now, in a frugal mindset, in a frugal situation, when there is scarcity of money, paucity, and you're struggling and everything, probably justifiable, because it's unfair to paint everyone in the same brush. So there might be a genuine situation or a reason for someone to not be able to afford something more. But we often find that people have argue for the sake of argument. They argue just to exhibit a sense of power and control. It becomes an ego battle between two people. Like, do what you want. I have so many options. It's my way or the highway, and stuff like that. And end always justifies the means. The word that you often hear is cost optimization, and so on and so forth. It's an organizational direction. What can I do about it? And there could be many more such reasons. But long story short, next time you are in a situation, whether you are a service provider or a vendor talking to a stakeholder who is negotiating hard, I think one of the things you can think about is ask upfront, saying that typically when we speak to similar customers, the common objection is price sensitivity. However, a solution like ours or a product like ours costs, say, $100 typically, and I could go a little bit up and down here. Is this within your range? If they say, no, this is out of the range, for example, if they say, oh, you're asking for 100 and you can at best make it 90, I was thinking about $10. Or if that is the variance, it's important to ask them how serious they are about that claim. If the answer is yes, that is plus minus no amount of convincing works beyond a point, right? I mean, at best, suppose they're paying $10 for their existing solution, even if they go stretch, probably go to $12, $15 maybe. So in that instance and in that particular case, that might not be time well spent for you. And it is important for you to, and I know it's a cliche, but go find the proverbial low hanging fruit elsewhere where they have a similar range. Look, nobody's going to say upfront, yeah, that's $100 just fine. Go ahead, uh, send me the order. I'll sign the check. It's not like that, right? But it has to be in the vicinity. Especially, there's a differentiation in cases where if you bifurcate between good to have services or products versus must have, then the negotiations are a little different. Then you say if you don't have a security solution in your premise, then you risk vulnerability to increase vulnerability to attacks and crashes, and business might disrupt. And so it's a fear sale. It's not the right way to sell, but it's a fear sale, and that evokes a separate response. But in those instances where people have a good to have, my life will continue even if you don't turn up, even if I don't buy your service. Yeah, it's good to have. I get that. Those conversations are a little more difficult to have with a customer as a service provider. In such cases, it is important to ask upfront the compelling reason for them to do it now. Why now? Why not later? And try and have a honest conversation saying that we'll go down the cycle of feature demos, POCs, uh, back and forth on explanations and presentations. But let's begin with the end in mind. I know you've heard that before. That assume you like the demo. What happens then? There are only two outcomes. If you don't like it, end of conversation. If you do like it, what happens then? Right? And if you don't like the price and you like the demo, then what happens? So having this conversation, I know it's difficult. I give you that it's difficult. A lot of people will be nervous to have that conversation. They've been trying to break into the account for a very long time, but they haven't been. And the one chance you got, if you're going to just scare people off, that oh, he's already talking money and without even pitching the product, doing a demo, that's tough. So sales is tough, make no mistake, but it's also important that you're on the right train. You don't want to travel in the wrong train and find out that on the penultimate station to your destination that that is not the train that you should have been. So discovery, deep dive, longer than normal is the net of the story to minimize the pain. There still will be uh, it's difficult, but can you minimize it? So I would spend a lot more time in qualifying the conversation, the opportunity, and every single term, not just the pricing, the paper process, the signing authorities, the previous vendor engagements, what's worked then, what are the potential red flags, what have been the previous challenges, where has the pricing trends been, and, so on and so forth. So as much intel that you can gather about one about the final steps right at the start. That'd be a great conversation that would probably help tackle the delayed payments, the net 30s and the net 60s a little bit better. Invoicing rituals. It's a three-step dance: send invoice, send reminder, emotional support message, over and over again, following up. And there are customers who do it deliberately. And in such instances, you will have to have the backing of your management, of your team, to say, hey, walk away from this deal. Right. So all of these situations, you'll have to have a conversation not just externally but internally as well. In your one-on-ones, in your reviews, in your forecasts, you will have to have the advanced conversation on what is going on in a deal. It's just not about the feature and the benefit and what solution you're selling, but the entire 360 degree view of that particular deal. Negotiation of terms. Clients love flexibility, especially when it comes to payment timelines. And so, what happens if something changes? Are you willing to honor our commitment? Is there an escape clause there? Sometimes there is a great fit for the product or the service, but the terms and conditions and the clauses don't fit well. Whole idea is to see if you can find it early rather than later. And last but not the least, in this part, is the cultural competency, if you may call it, for that company to your company. Payment delays often stem an internal bureaucracy, sometimes not necessarily always a bad intent. But if it's a hugely bureaucratic, goes through 10 people with 10 different interests on the deal, what do you do then? Who supports you? Who helps you through the system? And why should they help you? What if they are gone? Well, how do you then progress the deal? Those are things to think about. Right? And you never know when there is a curveball coming your way, when there is a unforeseen, out of syllabus question, objection coming your way. So it's important to dive deep into the processes, end processes, as early as possible, if not right at the start, but as early as possible. After the first call, when you establish that there is a project, there is a proper business problem to be solved, and your product or service or solution kind of fits the bill. It's also important to take a step and say, yes, while I will do the demos and the POCs and all, I'd like to probably dedicate 20 minutes or 30 minutes in a call where I understand how the process works, given that we have not worked before. And if you have, then clearly there is a lot of data for you to check and see if anything has changed. Have you improved, and so on and so forth. So yeah, reality check, common practices. These are the common challenges that happen, and so how you navigate along those lines is going to be critical for you to go out there and close the deal. To sum this up for you, set clear terms early, discuss payment timelines during negotiation, not after closure. If it is not in writing, it's just wishful thinking. Just remember that. It has to be documented. Timelines, if not, if else, if then, and or all of these clauses have to be double checked, triple checked. Then next is build relationships with the finance teams. You finance folks are so good with your Excel sheets and Power BIs, but allow people to talk to you also, right? So as a salesperson, build relationships with them. Your real champion, or sometimes it's not just the buyer, it's the accounts payable executive. Share how you can you you know how your process is, how it works internally. Be transparent about your process and see if they open up and listen to you on their process, and so you can pick up some of the things that could be potential roadblockers at a later point. Third, needless to say, use technology, automate reminders through CRM tools. Sales is a thing about timelines, not timelines and milestones. Always try and see if you can do a fishbone there, and in what you need to do versus what they need to do. It's a simple track record that you need to maintain and keep checking on that. And of course, I'm referring to those sales folks who are dealing in, say, number of deals, as in they have a finite number of deals. Of course, there is a segment, say the SMB segment, which deals in volume. All said and done, the general framework remains the same. So keep track of reminders. That's one of the reasons why you need to be good at CRM. CRM is not just a project; it's a way of life. Keep track of invoice status and follow up systematically in advance. Also, build a rapport and relationship. Like I said, not just with the finance team, but it's like a goodwill. The fact that you want to let them know that customers buy from people they trust. So, what is it that you're doing to build trust? I know it's difficult, and you say, "Hey, I know it's just a transactional conversation that I'm trying to have with you. Once you sign your deal, I'm kind of done with you. I don't want to deal with you." That's not the body language or vibe that you want to give them to. You want to give them the vibe that you are there to partner with them even after the deal is done. I don't know how many of you go back and talk to the finance guy, the procurement chap, after the deal is over and say, "Hey, thank you. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Thank you for your support." Not just immediately after, but even after like 1 month, 2 months. Visit them every 4, 5 months, or 6 months, because renewals are just 12 months away. So it's important to be in touch at all times. See, there's so much to do as a salesperson other than just call the main decision maker and keep talking. Why don't you give me a project or an initiative and let me send you do a demo? There's so much more to the story in coverage, covering the whole enterprise length. Remember, in sales, you don't just close deals, you close the loops. And sometimes these loops take a few extra follow ups, a lot of coffee, but eventually you close the loops when you are on top of them right from the start. So I hope this gives you a few things to think about. Like I said, the there are no instant fixes or solutions. It is a big, challenging problem. Ability to do business gets impacted. But if all the people impacted by a sale transaction in a company are listening to this content, there is things to think about for all of us, right? To think of, if you are a seller, then you've got to think of how better you can keep everybody informed, communicated in time, and build relationships and rapport, and document everything. If you are at the receiving end, that if you're a signing authority, you're a leader, don't keep the person or the company waiting incessantly, unnecessarily. If you're not going to do business with them, tell them that while your solution is impressive, but we may want to give it a pass for now and move on. Your reasons being your reasons, beyond a point, what else can be done? Alternatively, if you do like their solution and say, "Hey, look, this is what is stopping me from doing it," more often than not, if there's a technology fit, then it is a commercial discussion, then it's an important thing for you to let them know upfront that that is my threshold, without buffering extra for it. Like, in your mind you're saying, remember that the solution costs $100, you say, "No, I'm paying $10," and in your mind, probably close it at 20. That kind of might even throw off the seller a little bit, saying, well, maybe you might not get the best solution then. I mean, if you really think that the solution or a product was a good fit, and the pricing could have been, of course, if not $100, it could have been 80 or 90, and you could still do it. And you had the money. I mean, let's also be honest about the money part of it, right? Yes, we live in the age of cost optimization. There's no, cost optimization doesn't mean random discounting or price asks. Cost optimization essentially means a smart use of money where you get the best bang for the buck. And so it's important to maintain a healthy ecosystem of a happy supplier, a happy vendor. If the vendor is going to just scrape by, then you will end up spending more money in maintenance and fixing and support and all that stuff. And then it'll come down to you. Yes, you can put the seller or the company and point a finger that was a bad product and all that. But essentially, it was a poor decision on your part that you you wanted a ridiculously low pricing, and one couldn't have given you the best version of the product at that ridiculously low price. So somewhere the paying mindset has to improve. The paying culture has to improve. That yeah, you have to spend as much time as you want to be convinced about a product or service or a solution. Once you are convinced, then don't unnecessarily throw people off on price. I know it's a tough world out there. So cost optimization cannot just be random discounts. Cost optimization also means spending money the right way. If you are a accounts payable, don't delay. I know you get such requests every day from multiple vendors. This is part of your process, and everything takes its own due course and time. But you want to make sure that there are accountabilities in place where you move the paper forward as quickly as possible without people having to chase you up. And the worst thing some of people do is not respond, ghosting, just don't talk at all. And the and if the seller is constantly following up, they also get irritated and bugged. Like, point being, why are you bugged when somebody's trying to help you and solve the problem for you, right? And it is very unfortunate that people don't respond. I mean, that's the rudest thing to do. Don't want to do business with them, tell them upfront. Be brave enough to tell, yes, at the time when we were engaging, that was what the situation was, but not so anymore. And while unfortunate, we will give you another opportunity. And that's a fair way to close a conversation, and rather than ghosting them, as compared to that. If you are a business leader whose signatures are pending, how many times have we heard that you needed six signatures and the final signature is pending? The main leader who's traveling, like, yeah, you're traveling, but businesses can't stop because you're traveling, can it? Will your business stop? Like, will you, if you're servicing your customer, because and they ask you that, why haven't you enabled the solution or service? Will you say, I'm traveling, so why don't you wait for a few days? You won't. So why would you do the same to the other? Right? So what goes around comes around, isn't it? So believe in having a happy ecosystem around you. As leaders, as influencers in a company, fundamentally, principally, have a culture fabric of having a happy ecosystem. Your vendors, your suppliers, your employers, your employees, whoever, the whole ecosystem that you're in the middle, or even if you're at the top, what happens is a lot more work gets done instead of doubting everyone, being cynical, being hard on people, unnecessarily hard. Clearly, if you have many instances in previous lives, I've seen people were pirating licenses, people were trying to break the system somehow, or why pay money when you can get it for free kind of mindset. Please understand, that is not a scalable, sustainable thought process or a strategy for anyone. In fact, the fact that you're thinking that way in itself is principally fundamentally wrong. And so you will eventually pay a price today, tomorrow, either in person or as an organization, because someday the service will stop, or services are terminated, or the product stops working, or the free trial ends, or whatever. And yes, you can hop skip to multiple vendors, but it has its own challenges. And ultimately, why are you doing this again? Right? I mean, for what joy and what purpose? So, an entire ecosystem around you can't be unhappy. So, spend time trying to have a happy ecosystem, and you'll see more work being done. People will go out of their way to ensure that there are no disruptions. Well, that's all the time I had for this episode, folks. I hope it gave you things to think about. I hope it was relatable. If you had a similar experience, do leave a message, and I'll try and give it a shout out in my subsequent episodes. You know, if you like this episode, you can leave a comment, you can share, you can review this on Apple podcast pages, and I'm available on LinkedIn in case you want to reach me. on platform X on Ionisms, AAYANISMS. That's the fastest way if you can send a tweet. Or if you want to reach out on the website, it's www.bustalk.in. That's IN. So I look forward to meeting you again with yet another episode, yet another fascinating topic of discussion. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did sharing. Until we meet again, my name is Ian, and you were listening to Bus Talk.